Now, in what is being deemed as the most restrictive abortion bill ever passed since Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court's upholding of the Texas legislature's heartbeat bill has put the controversial topic of abortion right back into the spotlight. Now, the bill, which prohibits abortions where the heartbeat is detected, makes it illegal for anyone in the state of Texas to knowingly engage in, conduct anything that aids or abets the performance or inducement of an abortion where the heartbeat is detected, which is actually usually around 5 to 6 weeks of pregnancy. Now, the bill passed the Texas legislature in May of this year. However, it was fought by abortion advocates all the way to the Supreme Court, who declined last week to block, causing both sides of the issue to become very inflamed. Now, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland is getting involved, and he says the Department of Justice will protect people trying to obtain or provide abortions in Texas after the heartbeat is detected. So to give us a 360 view, not on the issue of abortion itself, but this DOJ's new involvement on the issue, we bring in Reese, attorney and founder of the Blush Project, and Demetrius Minor, author, preacher, and political commentator. Thank you so much for joining me on this issue. You know, it's become very heated over social media watching. I know this past week, even I'm reading it going, okay, people are obviously very engaged in this on both sides of the aisle. Reese, I want to start with you. Why do you feel the DOJ is actually getting involved in this issue?
Well, interestingly enough, as you may know, Merrick Garland was actually slated to be one of the Supreme Court justices who would be deciding this if Obama's nomination of him had gone through. But I believe that and so unfortunately, he's not in position right now as a Supreme Court justice to defend it, but he's able to do it from his position as U.S. Attorney General. And thank goodness for that, because at this time, women in Texas literally have no recourse. You have women who have a constitutional right, and they're literally being blocked and banned. And the U.S. is saying there's nothing they can do at the moment. And so, I mean, there's nothing other people can do to protect their rights. So thankfully, the DOJ is stepping in, because otherwise these women would be left with no recourse.
So, Demetrius, here's the concern. Like I said, this is not about a debate about abortion itself. That's a whole nother, that's an entire show on its own. This is more about the DOJ and the actual president. You know, are you worried that this sets the precedent to further weaponize the justice system, to do the bidding of the opinions of those in power versus the law, the actual law that is on the books? You know, have we ever seen this before, do you feel like?
Well, Scotty, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's such an honor. And the last time I checked, we have checks and balances, and that's the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. They're not supposed to be serving in terms of overreaching, but to check and to balance. And the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that the Texas law was constitutional. Therefore, it is a breach and overreach of government for the Department of Justice to be interfering with this. And also, it's saddening to see the leftist government institutions continue to advocate for what I call a culture of debt. I mean, listen, they're not going to do what they have to do about the border security and national security. They're not doing their job when it comes to national security and Afghanistan policy. Oh, but let's make sure that abortion and killing babies is intact. But just moral reasons aside, there are some constitutional problems that I have with the DOJ's actions.
And that's where I'm kind of concerned about right now, because, you know, obviously we've seen parties rule and they get out of power in the White House all the time. It switches possibly every 4 years. So, Reese, on this question, forget these three branches of government that he brought out, or even the legislative process that this went through in Texas. Does this mean that the DOJ actually is more powerful on any issue? Like I said, take abortion out of it. Can they do whatever they deem necessary in the future, whether it be women's rights, whether it be immigration issues, whether it be anything else that, you know, the Supreme Court or the judicial branch says, nope, it's okay, they can go against it?
Well, see, and when you talk about something like checks and balances, you have to keep in mind that the DOJ's job is to protect and enforce the rules of the land. And so what we know is that they're they're using a act called the FACES Act, which stands for the Freedom to Access Clinic Entrances, and that it prohibits anyone from in obstructing or threatening a person who's trying to enter a clinic for reproductive health access. And because there's a law on the books, the DOJ is perfectly within their rights to enforce that law, whether they use it criminally or civilly. And so to then juxtapose that with the Texas ban, which says that an individual, and this is what's really interesting, the only reason that the Supreme Court allowed this bill or this bill to pass in Texas is because it allows individuals to enforce it rather than the government. And so individuals can now sue someone that they see as aiding and abetting a woman who's going to get an abortion, or a doctor who's performing an abortion. Well, here's the problem with that. You cannot interrupt or interfere with a woman's bill or actions attempting to go into this clinic. And so to be able to sue her Lyft driver, Uber driver, is just insane. And thankfully, these companies are coming forward. Even Lyft and Uber have come forward and said they're willing to pay for the legal bill of anyone involved or who's been attempted to be sued by a person, because such a lawsuit is just frivolous and it would clog up the legal system in Texas. So I don't know where the Supreme Court comes with this idea, but thankfully other agencies are getting involved and stepping up and doing what needs to be done.
And Demetrius, I've got to have you back on because we're out of time for the show. You know, my big question is one Supreme Court case versus another Supreme Court case. It's always interesting to see that. Thank you for having this conversation. I'm sure it will continue.